Hey, it's me Phil, and I finally beaten Shadow of the Erdtree, 2 times as a matter of fact, and I'm again playing it for the 3rd time while making this video. If you want my short thoughts on the DLC, I love it, it's great. Just fix the performance from soft, please. For today's ranking, I'll be only including all the Remembrance bosses found in the DLC. I won't be including side dungeon bosses or field bosses and stuff like that. Maybe in the future, who knows. Also, I can't stress this enough. This is solely based on my first 2 playthroughs and how I've experienced the bosses. I did try to learn them as best as I can, so if you disagree with the placements, just say it calmly, I beg you. As usual, these are the tiers I'll be using. Luckily, we are not starting with the bottom 2 tiers, so let's begin. So, people really don't like this boss. Actually no, people despise this boss. I admit I don't have a burning hatred for Gaius, but he is just boring. Pun intended. He's just another tree sentinel knockoff, but instead of a horse, he is riding a boar. How amusing. He has attacks, none of them are really interesting. Just basic combos, Donkey kicking you if you're behind him, and some gravity based attacks. None of them are really interesting, but they aren't insulting. Well, I'm lying, the charge is straight up unfair. I can dodge it up close, but if he starts it at range, you're screwed. Second phase at least has a cool attack where he flies up in the air and slams the ground, and he can summon an orb that will pull you if you're in the range of it. That's something at least. But really my biggest question is, why is he a Remembrance boss? He doesn't have the spectacle of the other bosses. His theme is a reuse of Commander Niall's theme, and his moveset is dull. Why did they give him a Remembrance title? Like some mini bosses were more memorable than him. Godskin Duo was more memorable than him. This one I only remember because he guards 5 Erdtree fragments. That's all. Erdtree Avatar is a giant flower that loves to move around and send thorns to you. Its attacks are mostly basic with no varying combo finishers, just slams, the grabs and sending thorns. I do like that the thorns require a specific dodge timing since they will appear a second later when the boss slams his glowing hand. But when you kill it and it looks like it died for good, it comes back with new attacks like the charge and with couple new combo finishers. The charge is instant, but the hitbox is much more forgiving than with the Gaius. Still basic, but once you take down the boss's health again, it comes back for the final time and has a giant explosion. And then it dies. Don't get me wrong, it's a decent boss and it isn't as boring as Gaius was. But again, they should have gone much harder with this boss. At least the design is cool and can be fun at times. So I think Erdtree Avatar is right in the middle of C tier. This boss is straight out of Bloodborne, and I love Bloodborne. Sony PC port when? Anyways, this boss probably has the best looking arena in the whole game. I love the atmosphere. Then there's the design of the boss, which is incredible looking. It's a monster made entirely out of fingers and hands. It's cool, but again mechanically it's not much. It really loves to throw temper tantrum by just jumping around and slamming the ground with her hands. It can also summon a bunch of minions, which you can kill so easily, so they add nothing to the fight. On the more positive side, I like how you can't just stand by her side since she can instantly hit you with the fingers. Phase 2 is more interesting with some trickier dodge timings, exploding orbs and a big laser. The laser is kind of questionable since the first one is really hard to dodge, while the other lasers just pass by without even coming close to hitting you. You can see I am somewhat mixed on this boss overall. Maybe in the future I'll like it more. If not, it was at least visually incredible. Here we have the new most divisive boss ever made, We got another Malenia situation, only from what I've seen there is more hatred to Radahn than praise. Radahn is by far the hardest, most brutal boss I've ever faced. He makes Malenia look like Pinwheel. He is insane, and honestly a bit too much. Now look, since this is based on my 2 playthroughs, I might go back and change my mind on the placement. I used to hate Malenia when I first fought her, now I love the fight. But if I'm honest, I'm not so sure about Radahn. Phase 1 is mostly on point, he has fair telegraphed attacks, I like how much positioning plays a big role, jumping over the meteors, remembering his combos, it's great. Only one attack is just not possible to dodge safely. This one. It is nearly impossible to avoid it for how quick it is. Besides that one, it's a clean duel. Phase 2 makes the already existing attacks more difficult by sending holy lasers whenever Radahn swings his sword, so positioning is even more important here than in the first phase. There's one big problem though. Miquella's stupid hair blocking the view of the swords. You need to see the swords to know which combo Radahn will be doing, but you can't see because of Miquella's hair. This isn't even the worst part of the fight. The triple slash is made even worse with the lasers that can stun lock you to death. And then there is the meteors and the holy nuke. Meteors are really hard to deal with since you have to be pixel perfect with your positioning and dodging, and if you're a millisecond late, goodbye to your health. And the holy nuke is the worst attack FromSoft has ever made. He can start it at any moment, it covers a huge portion of the arena, deals a ton of damage and forces you to run away from it. And thanks your performance. Thank you. This attack is just horrendous, what were they thinking? At one point I just started tanking the explosion since at least I can get 2 charged heavy attacks. Before someone says I'm bitching that it's too hard, that's not the point I'm making. I like hard fights, they are usually my favorite. Like I said, phase 1 is great, but phase 2 is just a visual hell. FromSoft probably won't be nerfing him since they didn't touch Malenia whatsoever, so I doubt they'll be nerfing him. If not, then at least fix the performance issue with the boss. Also make Miquella's hair shorter, make this guy bald or something. We are finally at the point where the bosses start to become really good. Romina might not have the difficulty like the other bosses, but she does have a distinct visual design, beautiful soundtrack, and just being fun overall. Unlike the previous entry, she doesn't have crazy combos, but I do like that the directional rolling is still required, which is always a positive for me. I also like how when she flies up in the air and then instantly slams the ground, there's a subtle flash and the sound cue when to dodge. Second phase is even better with the inclusion of butterflies that will explode and this cool combo that she can use from time to time. My only complaint is the phase transition. She starts it instantly and if you're up close, you'll get hit. You can't avoid it. Also, for being a major boss that you have to fight to progress the DLC, she could have used an intro cutscene of some kind, instead of just nothing. She's just a good boss all around. Putrescent Knight continues the trend of cool looking bosses. On that note, I like how you get to his arena by just dropping down from a very high space into this ominous cave. Now, Putrescent Knight is similar to many other horseback riding bosses we've seen in Elden Ring, only much better in my opinion. I like how much positioning plays here. If you dodge into him, he will be extending his combos, or how if you dodge towards him while he throws his weapon like a boomerang, he will immediately slash you with it once it comes back to him. I like that adaptiveness, and his synchronized move with the horse is great, but they do unfortunately get a tad bit repetitive once you know the tricks. Phase 2 adds the fire into the mix, which forces you to jump over it instead of just spamming the roll button. He can send it towards you, or he can send it so that it actually comes back to you, and he gains like 1 or 2 more mix-ups. Like with Romina, I don't have any issues with what is there. It's all good. The reason why I put him over Romina is I like the atmosphere more and the build-up is better. Divine Beast is such an awesome looking boss. I really like the visual design. This must have been a pain in the ass to animate, yet the results are immaculate. As a boss, it's great. Mostly. We'll get there. Most of his attacks are jumping, biting you, spinning, breathing smoke, I guess, and grabbing you. Some of his attacks are delayed, like this one where he stands upright and then instantly falls. The key here is to dodge right when his jaw closes. It indicates when he will slam the ground. In second phase he will shift between 3 different elements: lightning, ice and wind, which all add different elements to the fight. Ice is my favorite as it asks you to be more precise with the dodges. Wind adds a giant tornado, and then there's the lightning. I hate this part of the fight. Every single time he attacks, the lightning will randomly spawn around the arena. You just have to be lucky with this one. There is also yet another major issue with the fight: the goddamn camera. Jesus Christ, do these beast bosses suffer from horrible camera angles. It especially messes up this fight since the boss moves in a much more sporadic way than other giant bosses. When you can see what he's doing, it's great. When you can't, it's frustrating. So that's why I would say he's between B and A tier. But that's it for A tier. Yep, that's it. The rest are nothing but S tier fights. Pontiff Sullivan, good to see you again. Relana is really hard. Like, for appearing this early into the DLC, she is quite demanding. She has a lot of combo variations, mix up of quick and slow slashes, homing glintstone swords and so on. Not to mention the second phase, which adds even more deadly combos and attacks. At first it felt frustrating. I thought she was too quick for the speed of Elden Ring, but as I kept dying to her, I started to realize that she ends her combos with different attacks based on your positioning, what attacks leave her wide open for counterattack, how dodging either to her left or right will make you avoid her quick slashes. That's when the boss clicked for me. It went from frustrating to amazing. Dodging her combos, holding my roll button for her delayed slashes, her constantly dashing back and forth. You just start dancing with the boss, which I love. Second phase emphasizes directional rolling even more with magic and fire thrown into the mix. Like her lunge, which you could previously roll backwards, now you have to roll to her right side to avoid the explosion. Along that, she has really cool looking attacks. I like the fire whirlwind she can use, multiple magical waves, and the 2 moons which slam the ground following by her slamming the ground. It's all chef kiss. If I had a nitpick, I would say that while it makes sense she would use the glintstone swords, they can sometimes combo in an unfortunate way. That and story-wise there isn't anything interesting about her, but I can overlook that since the fight mechanically is incredible. Midra is the most Dark Souls 3 boss you could get in Elden Ring. He doesn't have that many combo variations, his attacks are much slower and deliberate, and he is much easier than the other bosses. So why is he in the 3rd place and above Relana? Well, it's all about the flow, the atmosphere, and the elegance of the fight. He has the best build-up in the DLC and the best intro cutscene. The slow reveal that he is the Lord of Frenzied Flame is such a memorable moment for me. Mechanically, they could have gone insane with the whole madness thing. Instead, they struck gold here. While it is still a threat if you let it build up, you can avoid it with careful positioning. He has slow yet natural feeling attacks, where you don't have to memorize the timing. You look at the animation and dodge when it feels right. The second phase adds more madness-themed attacks, where you have to dodge either to his left or right side, but not backwards since you'll get hit by it and lose a ton of health. And the whole arena is now set on fire, emphasizing the threat that is the Lord of Frenzied Flame. And the soundtrack is by far my favorite in the whole game. You might have noticed that in the footage I am purposely using a weak weapon. That is because I don't want to end this fight quickly. The only other boss that made me feel this way is Morgoth, which is a great thing in my book. Maybe if I wasn't so biased I wouldn't put him this high, but sorry, I just can't. He's one of the most addictive bosses I fought in a long time, and I will remember him for that. FromSoft, you have done it. You have finally done it. You finally made a dragon boss that is better than Midir. I didn't think this day would come. I thought we would never get a dragon boss that is on par or better than Midir. And boy was I wrong. Bale is such a wild ride of a boss. He has things that made Midir work so well, like lowering his head after he is done with his combos, whole gimmick of going after his head, and he has elements that are better than Midir. In Midir's fight I dislike his whole walk across the arena attack, it just prolongs the fight needlessly. While with Bale, whenever he zooms across the arena, he will follow it up with a tail swipe, which will always position Bale to be right next to you. The spectacle of the fight is on a whole another level, especially the second phase. He will start flying around the arena, breathing fire, there will be explosions everywhere. But everything is still dodgeable, like his nuke, which he can use at close range, can be avoided with a perfect timed dodge, meaning you don't have to run away from it or tank it. Why wasn't this in Radahn's fight is beyond me. Does Bale suffer from camera issues? Yeah, he does. But I don't care, since the fight is still incredible even with the camera at times being annoying. Also, how can I not mention him? Take it, Egon. Bale just strikes a perfect balance of visually incredible yet mechanically fair. But there's still one more boss that I like even more than Bale. The one boss I was really excited to fight, but also very skeptical, was Mesmer. I was thinking to myself, he will have an attack like Waterfall. He will have a stupid gimmick. He will be frustrating. Yet again, FromSoft has proven me wrong here. Mesmer is everything I wanted him to be. He has combo mix-ups of both slow and fast hitting attacks, flurries that you have to avoid, grabs, throwing his weapon, attacks that send fire in a specific direction, and attacks that punish roll spamming. He is demanding for sure, but not to the point of his attacks being cheap. His attacks in that sense are much more readable. And I love how just based on his animations you'll know which attacks he will be doing when. Like his barrage of spear stabs, which he only does when he jumps up and stays for a second. If he jumps and immediately starts spinning, he won't be doing his quick stabs. Same goes for his other attacks, like dragging his spear, which he always does after his slightly slower overhead slash. Second phase is more of the same, except for one thing. Snakes. A lot of snakes. He will from time to time turn into a snake and try to crush you. He can summon snakes at any moment, and he can use this big combo of snakes attacks, which he always follows with either a giant explosion or spears appearing from the ground. I think this boss embodies all the positive aspects of Elden Ring's boss design. No cheap unavoidable attacks, combos that keep you on your toes, directional rolling, timing your rolling, finding safe opportunities to attack and heal if needed, amazing lore and music. It's as perfect as you can get. Is he my favorite boss FromSoft has made? Probably not. I think Horaloo, All Might and Inner Father are above him, but he is still up there with greats such as them, and he is the best boss in this DLC. That's about it for Shadow of the Erdtree. Overall, the bosses were good, at least for the remembrances. If I had included other bosses, trust me, Leda and her companions would be the lowest F tier I could give. I'm still baffled that the NPC fights are still a thing. but maybe I will save that once I make a full video on Shadow the Erdtree as a whole. Until then, thanks for watching. That's all, goodbye.